Good morning, and good morning. Okay, it's cold. I always have to tell you how the temperature is, but the sun is out. But I'm thinking it's something like 42 degrees. Y'all know I don't like that. I am just not the cold person. I don't know how I ever was born and raised in New York, but I was. But every time I go home, even in the summertime, I am freezing. So they all laugh at me. They said, "But you were born in this weather." Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're supposed to stay there. It just means that that was your epic. That was where you entered. You have to know when it's time to transition. And sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we stay in the same place forever and ever and ever, not realizing that there's something in us that's of a creative nature that says that we should do more with who we are, with what we've been given. And sometimes we don't. We shy away from it. We have a tendency to believe that only others do all the things that they do. No, I don't want to live vicariously. I'm hoping and praying that I will just continue to live my life until I'm no longer in existence. And that means that I need to look at what's fun for me, what's interesting to me, what's adventurous to me. Those are the kinds of things that I look at, about not today, but today and tomorrow, and then the day after tomorrow, and then next year. And I'm always constantly in the mode of present, future. I keep them somewhat balanced as I can. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're too busy in our present that we never plan for anything that's futuristic. We never think about how will I transition into the next thing that I want to do, you know. Even this morning I've woke up and I have a left eye that's been my right eye that's been giving me trouble for since I went to the eye doctor. And so I'm trying to make amends. So what do I need to do? And so finally, I did make a call to say I need to come back in and see you because since you put the eye drops in, the eye's not been pleasant. It's not holding on good. But good morning, my sweet friend. How are you? How are you doing? Hope you're doing well this morning. We're going to get on into it because I picked another longer word today. Today's word is transition. And I just know that for me, I'm in constant transition. Um, I want to be comfortable with who I am and what I'm all about, but occasionally I get kind of antsy and frustrated and concerned, and then I make plans to transition into doing something else. So, anyway, this morning I found a poem, and the poem is by Heidi Sands, and it talks about transition, and it was written in 11/19/18. That's when it was entered onto the platform that I went on this morning. And I always try to find a poem or a meaningful statement that pretty much you know kind of sums up where I'm going with the word that I've chosen for the day. And today it was transition. So it says, this is the title of the poem, Transition. It says, I once encountered a mountain I didn't want to climb. So I stood and viewed its beauty, left everything else behind. I once encountered pouring rain and didn't want to get wet. I chose to watch and listen to soothing sound without regret. I once felt pain in my heart so deep I couldn't move, so I had to restart all the things I had abandoned so that I would not fall apart. I once stood at the graveyard, afraid to face the next day, left gifts by a gravestone while I stood and chose to pray. Many times through the years, beaten by loss and sorrow, released by tears that I shed, with dreams I chose to follow. I once wondered while standing in a meadow, why am I still here? So I assumed it is to give more, open up, and overcome my fear. Through the valleys and the peaks of life, I know I did my best to keep on going to all the cost and challenge every single test. Moving through transition with things that came my way, led me here so I am able to write about it all today. Sometimes we don't even realize all the things that we're going to have grounding, have significance, have a purpose for us to not only write about them, but us to live them out as if they not only are golden, but that they are worthy of us having gone through them, even if it's bad. Some of the things that are bad absolutely give us a footing for how we go forward. Good morning, Ardelia. How you doing, my friend? Today our word is transition. And that's what I said I wanted to start out this new year with words that really we're talking about movement, our movement, your own movement, Sandy's movement, Ardelia's movement, Erica's movement, Debbie's movement, all the people that have come through, the Are You Stuck, platform. Just that we know in this space, we're talking about things that are certainly for you. There are questions that you can ask yourself. And sometimes we don't always ask ourselves questions, I must be honest. We ask other people questions and we ask nothing of ourselves. We respect and sometimes listen for more advice from others than we ever do in giving our own selves advice, because we get lost in what other people think of us, what they say they know about us, but we know who we are if we stand on the foundation of Are You Stuck? And today's word says transition means something to me. Good morning, Cheryl. Cheryl just had a transition. She transitioned from being a full-time worker to being a retired, loving wife, traveler, an occasional grandmama, having fun with her grandchild. Those are wonderful things. Those are wonderful things. We must accept transition as it comes to us. And sometimes other people may force it on us, but we have to accept it in order to deal with it. Sometimes things are given to us and we don't want them. We don't want them. We don't want them. Yes, thank you, Father. That's right. Thank you, Father. We do have to thank. And Cheryl and I, we believe in the man upstairs. So sometimes our transitions may not be as easily dealt with as we go through it, but it is what it is. Ironically, I've been dealing with this whole thing of transition since August 3rd, 2016. Good morning, Tara. How are you? Good to see you in the space. Good to see you, Diva. I call you the Diva. But I've been dealing with this since 2016 when I talked about, basically was an Are You Stuck process, but I added Are You Stuck later. Originally, this was called LOT, and LOT was called Launching Opportunities in Transition. And for those who don't know, I started that with a dream. It was a dream that came to me, and it came to me in such a way that it says, you need to train some people in the community, and this is what you need to do and how you need to get it done, and figure out what their intelligences are, because there's multiple intelligences that we have. And that was my part of my doctorate, looking at what we have. They don't realize that mathematics is an intelligence, and the ability to speak, the ability to interpret information, the dance, the physicalness of dance, the musicality of what we hear in our heads, all those things are intelligences, but we don't realize it because we've broken it down to we do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But sometimes if we delve long enough in a certain area, we may find that we're not only proficient, but we're probably on the status of genius, or certainly one that can articulate it in such a way that makes it beautiful. But you have to try it. You have to give it a chance, which is what this poem talked about in transitions. How do we go into what it is that we don't know we can do? Try it. Try it out. So launching opportunities was the process of really looking at changing from one state to another. That's transition. That is transition, And if you go to the Bible, if you all believe in doing that, the Bible talks about Lot being a man who was living in Sodom and Gomorrah, which was a city of ill repute. There was a lot of things going on in that city that needed to be changed. And so God was going to destroy the city. And so angels came down and they talked a lot. They said, we realize, I presume that they said this, we realize you're a good man and you need to get out of the city and take your family with you. And Lot was ready to go. Lot selected his family. The brother-in-laws decided his children's husbands. So the husbands of his daughters decided to stay. The wife, as well as Lot and the rest of the family, was told, if you turn around and look back, you will turn into a bag of salt. So some of them turned around. Some of them actually never left. You know, the son-in-laws never left. Okay, they didn't. The wife, Lot's wife, turned around and she turned into basically a pillar of salt, meaning she melted down to just a granulated existence, meaning no longer in the flesh, but on the ground. And so I thought about that and I said, well, how can we deal with that in the form of an educational process? We can deal with it in looking at us as individuals, that if we constantly turn around, we cannot go forward. Good morning, Maurice. How are you? Happy day. Today our word is transition. So in looking at Lot from the Bible and then looking at transition, which is our word today, we can't transition if we continue to look back. If we continue to stay in our background, we can't go to a foreground. We can't go ahead. We can't move. We can't exist in the past and think the present is going to work. No, we're stuck. You know, I asked you that question. Are you stuck? You're stuck. You're stuck. So when breaking this word down and starting with transition, it talks about taking a chance. How many of us are willing to take chances, to move, to make a passage, to do a transformation, conversion? All of these are words that are part of what transition is. Making an adjustment from being, wrong to right, from going from down to up, from going from left to right. Those things just really talk about, there's movement in all of them. There's what they would call a shift, a switch, a flux, a development, a metamorphosis. All of those things speak to who we are as individuals. We don't have to be carbon copies of someone else. We must be who we are. Good morning, OJ. Happy belated birthday. Love you, my sister. OJ is from my undergraduate degree area, and we still love each other to this day, and that's godly. That's godly and good stuff. But so we want to look at the word, and we break this word down. We talk about, she said, transition and transformation. Have no fear. Oh, what you say? Come on now. Have no fear. That's what this poem talked about, having no fear, going into the areas that have caused us doubt. Sometimes once we get through the conversation in our head of doubting and getting past that, all we find is not only success, but we found pleasure, we found enjoyment, we found opportunity, we found growth. We live. So my first T in the word of transition is transformation. And transformation, it says, is a thorough or a dramatic change in a form of appearance. Now, we may appear to a lot of people for a lot of things. It may be our looks, it may be the way we speak, it may be the way we walk. Those are the physical attributes of people, the appearance. But then we can look at the appearance, our own appearance. How do we appear to ourselves? If we're constantly in doubt, then we've shadowed who we are or what we can be, because we're too busy either chasing the dreams of others for us or for themselves, because it's really not for us. If they're doing them, and I think the poem I read the other day spoke about the thing that people have a tendency to think of themselves. Mind you, they should. But we shouldn't think of them where we become, just people that we idolize. No, do your own what I would call building up of your own character, your own, personality, your own person. Be you. Be you. Thank you, sister. Love always. Love you too, baby. So when we move on into the word of transformation. It says it's a thorough and dramatic change or form of appearance. It's going to be an alteration. How many of us are liking alterations? The only time we probably ever speak to alterations is if we need a suit or a dress or something that we're going someplace in. That's the alteration. We think of the visible alteration. What about the emotional, the psychological, the internal alteration? Because sometimes when we make turns there, we can make turns elsewhere. We can go anywhere else we want to go. We can be anyone we want to be that we've developed in ourselves. So it talks about also the modifications. How do we modify what we've already, honed? What's ours? How do we modify it? I even think about the Are You Stuck? I've modified it since I started. It started as Lot, launching opportunities in transition. And now I'm in Are You Stuck? Are you stuck? I love because it's a question to everyone. I give myself this whole thing. Am I stuck? Yes, sometimes I get stuck. Sometimes might get stuck on what I'm going to talk about, or when I'm going to do certain things, or how I'm going to do certain things. But the process is where you figure out, to push down the doubt and move forward, step on out. That's the excitement of it. So this transformation also talks about a transfiguration, an evolution, and a mutation. All of those things speak to transformation as we look at transition, your own, not anyone else's. We can watch other people and say, wow, they've really done some great stuff. Admire, okay? But we don't have to be like them. We don't have to talk like them, or walk like them, or do anything like them. Do you. Be who you are. When I move on in my word of transition, my R is for rotation. Rotation. I believe that just like, you buy fruit in the store and it tells you do not let it, sit like in refrigerators unless it is a cold fruit. But if it's a fruit that needs, air circulating around it, making sure that it doesn't overripe or just basically die because it's either too cold or it might be too warm. So you have to judge it. That's us. We do the same thing. Oh, revelation. I like that. Sometimes we do need a revelation. We do need to go to our brink in order for us to discover who we really are, what we really have to offer ourselves. Because I think if we're offering something of ourselves, and other people can see it, they can see it. It's visible. It's visible, and sometimes it's just felt. It's also an emotion that can be felt, that you care, that you love, that you appreciate, that you're grateful, that you acknowledge others. Those are good. So this whole thing of rotation talks about circular movement. Are you one that just stands in one place, or are you the one that moves around, meaning revolving, turning, spinning, wheeling, gyrating? Now that does say that any of that's nasty, okay? We're talking about just moving through life where there's a fluidity to you, meaning you're comfortable in the skin you're in. Cheryl, reality. I love it. Sometimes we have to deal with our own reality, our own understanding of what our life is compared to what someone else's life appears to be. And we don't know anyone else's life unless we are them. So therefore, part of what we think we know is all based on our imagining how things are for them. Because a lot of people give what I would call a great appearance, but they're hurting, they're frustrated, they're in anguish. They might be in physical pain, emotional pain. They may be going through something at their home where, they're physically being abused. So you never ever know. But to me, that's why I pray for a lot of people. I pray for myself too. I pray for myself that I continue to be in good mind, good spirit, good health, physically able to do all that I want to do. Because I tell you, I act like I might be 20 years younger than I am, only because I feel like it. I feel good. And so to me, that's important. So those are my rotating opportunities that I take every single day. Walking up and down the stairs, moving around my house, going out, trying to get in at least, 3,000 to 6,000 steps a day. It's something. It's not, I should be 10,000. I know it. Which would be 3 miles and change, but I haven't quite got there yet. But I'm good. I mean, I do pretty good. I do better than some. My A in transition is for alteration. And I talked about alteration a minute ago. How do we realize that we need to be altered? We need something done to us. That is a personal choice. The alteration is something that you say, you know what? I think I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. You know what you want to do. You know how you want to do it. And sometimes you might be questioning yourself. Seek advice if you want it. But if you're not one that accepts advice, then don't seek it. Okay? Because people are willing to tell you what they think you should do. So be willing to take what they say, and do it, or don't ask for it, or take it with a grain of salt. So the alteration talks about the action or process of being altered or altering, meaning that something you do may alter what others do. It says it's a change. It's an adjustment of some sort. It's a reshaping or remodeling of who we are. And sometimes we're not good at being reshaped. When I always say you can't teach a dog new tricks. That may be true. Because some people, as we get older, we get fixated on what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it. That's it. I know my daughter and I, we cooked a little bit over the holidays, and we were fussing about what needed to go into the sauce. Spaghetti sauce. I don't like green pepper in my spaghetti sauce, period. And she does. She says, well, Mom, it's supposed to be there. I said, I lived in Italy. They do not put green pepper, not in the southern portion. Where I was in Sicily, and I said, Sicily does not put green pepper. I mean, unless they have another sauce, like maybe they're doing like an arrabbiata, which is a hot, peppery sauce. They put peppers and different things in that, but not generally green pepper. But what do I know? Nothing. But anyway, reshaping, remolding, redoing. Sometimes we need to redo ourselves, and maybe with, hairstyles, and maybe with our clothes, maybe with our glasses. I have some glasses that are supposed to be not as reflective, but they seem to just take up all the light every time I put them on. It says there's a recoding that we go through, a restyling, rebuilding. I like that word, when we rebuild ourselves, and reorganizing. I ordered some things from Temu to reorganize my cabinets, because during the holidays I found that I have, the spices, but I couldn't find them quickly because I just had too many on one shelf, and they were all the same height. So that meant I had to take them out. And so I got some that spin and others that stack up. So then that way I can see better and get through to my recipe faster. When I move on in the word, in my N of transition, it's navigation. How do we learn? It says navigation is the act of navigating. And how well do we navigate anything? Most of the time when we speak of navigation, we might be talking about, a ship, a boat of some sort, a car, or, something of that nature. But then personally, we navigate our lives. We plan out stuff. We decide which way to go, and how do we steer our lives, and who's the pilot. We think that we might be the pilot of our lives, and sometimes we are. But I personally feel that I'm exposed to things based on the man upstairs. So that's my pilot. But it says, but we also talk about who's the head, you know, and we could talk about it being him being the head of our lives, or we can just talk about, no, just on the human side, I am the person that's doing the walk. I'm the person that's designing the course I take, the path, the cross way that I might encounter. But my guidance may be from up above, but I'm doing my best to work it out. I'm doing my best to work it out. That's transition. That's a transition, because you're planning something that wasn't planned before. Good morning, Miss Rosie. How are you? Love you, love you, love you. When I move on in our word of transition, that's our word for today. I talk about shift. They always talk about a shift. The shift is move or cause to move from one place to another, especially over small distances. Like I remember when I lived in Italy, we went through an earthquake. Well, I slept through it. And I remember my husband saying, did you know there was an earthquake? No. But they were, sending, information from the base, let them know that everybody was all right. And we were checking in and so forth and so on. And I'm like, I didn't feel a thing. That's because our daughter was really little and I was tired. So I slept through it. But obviously there was shift, and I could look around the house and see some things that shifted a little bit. But thank goodness we didn't have enough that it wasn't anchored, that that there was glass and things all over. It wasn't. It really wasn't. But when we shift, it says we move a cause, or a cause to move from one place, and especially over a small space. We're carrying something, meaning it might be our bodies, it might be something that's going with us, but there's a transport that's a part of that. There might be a transfer of what you were doing to what it's going to be done futuristically. There might be a conveying that takes place. It might be that you're moving around or relocating, or you're actually doing the word, which is today's word of transitioning. But you realize it. You realize it, that you're making a change. Has any of you made a decision about a new project, a new creation that you're going to work on for 2024? I told you the other day that it's going to be, even when I did my Auld Lang Syne last week, I want to look at, getting some books done. I've started these books, and I'm just so busy that I haven't done enough about getting them done. So that's my need to. But that would be certainly my shift. How do I get there? I'm working on it. I'm working on it, how I get there. My I is for, in transition, is individualized. I believe that when we are transitioning into anything, it is an individualized, happening, occurrence. It's you. It's not, other people may see you going through it and say, what's happening? You've changed. Okay. It's something that's tailored just for you. And it says something that suits you as a particular individual. That's who we are. We're our own individuals. And therefore, we're going to look at how we ascertain things, how we collate things, how we classify what it is that we're doing, how we're going to do it. We make decisions about, we decide if it's going to be A or B, up or down, round or rounder. It says it's a demarque. It's a to be determined. It's when we differentiate from what we were doing to what we can do. We went from doing nothing to doing multiple things, or at least one big thing. It says when we decide we're going to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. That could be scary. It says when we know something, and then when we've made a judgment about what it is that we want to do. Sometimes making a judgment is difficult. It just is. It just is. It's a difficult area to say that I'm going to transition on doing this new thing. And people always remember you for what you've always done in the past. So adding on what I call a new layer, sometimes people want to keep you with what they always remember you as and doing. So the new layer doesn't fit well with them. You just make sure it fits well with you. That's it. That's it. Make sure it fits well with you. When I move on further in the word, I move to travel. That's my second T, travel. I believe that the people who travel are the people who add content, who add character, who add creativity, who add, basically continuous opportunity to find new information that's in your travel. You know, I think if I had money, which I don't, but if I had money, I would travel more because I love learning. I love going to museums. Every time I'm able to get to a museum and we're in a city, I love the Smithsonian. I did the Smithsonian practically every time I would go to DC, and I was in DC often. I'd make a stop at the different museums, and I loved them, and just felt, my goodness, all this, you know, information. I can't hold it all in my head, and I love it. I would just love to do that if I ever would have known the interest level that I have in history. Maybe I would have been a history major, but I love education too. So teaching is probably more of my great appeal. And so that's where I stay. I stay in what I know. But for me personally, love to travel and love to learn things. So traveling talks about going from one place to another, typically over a distance of some length. Last year, no longer this year. Last year, I was afforded an opportunity to go to Australia. And at first, I had a little panic. I'm not going to lie. I had a little fear. All I kept thinking of is, girl, you're going to go over the international date line. You're going to lose a day going, and you're going to gain a day coming back, and you're going by yourself. Can you do that? And I had to talk to myself. But guess what? It was a wonderful trip. I did it. I did it by myself. I loved it. I learned things. I went to one of their theaters and got to see a play done by an Australian cast, and it was wonderful. It was like on Broadway, but it was smaller scale in terms of, it was a more affordable. Um, I also got to see now I saw the Monet. I saw the Monet visual interactive artwork, and it was wonderful. I saw Van Gogh in New York last year, and this year I got to see, well, the year prior. The year prior, I got to see Van Gogh. And then last year, I got to see Monet. And I'm just telling you, these are things, these are priceless things. It's in my DNA to realize I loved it. I loved it. And I walked away thinking, wow, I could do that again. But if you ever get a chance to see any of those, do see them. They're wonderful. So for me, travel talked about the fact that I moved, I proceeded, there was progress in what I did. I advanced on to the trip and returned unscathed, and I was transitioned. I absolutely was. I even went to the zoo looking for kangaroos and koala bears, saw the kangaroos, and yes, they were fighting and jumping with their, babies in their pockets. I got to see all of that. And the koala bears were not that friendly. The kangaroos were kind of cute, but the koala bears, they had their back to us, as did the orangutans and there was one other one, and the giraffes. They were kind of snooty, but nonetheless, I got to see them and I got great pictures of them. But to me, so travel for me is something that helps people transition, because you learn about other cultures, you learn about other lifestyles, you learn about the foods, everything, the clothing, everything was just different. But I loved it. I loved it. In fact, they had a free, get this, they have a free rail system. So everybody, you have to know your cross streets and your bilateral streets. But eventually I learned them after walking probably 4 miles out the way. I finally learned how to do that on my third day there. I finally learned, but the first 2 days were a little rough. But my point is this: is that life is just an interesting opportunity to transition from not knowing something to trying something, and all of a sudden something else. That's what happened. So my travel was my key for last year. My I in transition, my last I in transition is intentional. I believe you have to be intentionally deciding if you want to make change. No one will make change for you. Now, they may put you in a position to make change. They may put you in a position that you have to change, such as if they change your hours, excuse me, they change your hours for when you work. They change where you're going to work. Like I have several people that still are working at home since the pandemic, you know, but a couple of them said that they're being forced now to have to come back to office, and they formed a new lifestyle. They formed a new way. They transitioned from working in the corporate office to working at home. So what they want to do, they want to stay at home. So I think I think they're doing like an ease in kind of attitude where, you have to come to the office 2 days a week, you know. Well, before I left the government, I worked from home 3 days a week, 1 week, the first week, and the second week I worked 2 days, and then I was off the 10th day. That's how I worked it out, and they worked it out with me. But they can keep track of you because you have your CAC card or whatever it is that keeps you logged into your platform and all the things that are required of you. So intentional talks about done on purpose, deliberate, deliberate. It says one that has been calculated, one has been done on purpose. It's planned, it's meant, it's considered, it's knowing, it's studied, it's willful, and it's wanted. And as I said, when I was intentionally doing what it was I was doing for the government, I loved my job and I did it well. And they worked it out with me where those time frames worked. Whereas other people may not like their jobs as well, especially if they're requiring them to come back to the office. So where do you transition with that? That's where you may have to negotiate. You may have to negotiate what it is that they will allow you to do and what you actually end up doing. My O, which is, I'm coming down to the end, my O is observational. Observational. It says relating to the action or the process of closely observing or watching something or someone. I find it important that I observe what it is that I'm doing, how I'm doing, and then I write down things that need to be changed. Or if I want to transition into add something or take something away, I do that. Last year and the year prior, I only did words that were 4 or 5 letters long. But then I found out that if I spoke faster and came up with words that were engaging, that I'd have more time to not only talk to people, but people could talk back to me, of which they do. So observational talks about, the experiment. When you have decided that you're observing yourself, you have time to put in an experiment, or you can be pragmatic or progressive or provisional or speculative. You can basically decide that now I have some facts behind what it is that I do or what I don't do. And you can make it an experiment because, I have done that. Even when doing my doctorate, I had to do an experiment To just say, is this true or not true? Does it sound like this is plausible? Those are the kinds of things that help you do a transition once you find out that there's worthiness in it. And once the worthiness is in it for you and for what it is that you're doing, then you can modify how you do things and make it clear and clean for others. My last letter talks about, oh, wait a minute, before I go there, I see I missed a word. Observational also talks about, is it factual? When you're observing, is it facts or is it not? Is it a fact? Did it really happen? Did it really take place? Even when I was a teacher and they would come in and they'd have those, observational time periods, and they'd come in and they would say, well, Sandra, you have a good rapport with the students, but, that's when but what? We want you to, query more, okay, to make sure that what you're saying is learned. What you're teaching will be known when they leave there. I said, okay. So those are the kinds of things that we do when we go through a process of observation. And sometimes others can do it for you, but you can also do it for yourself. You can set up what I'm missing and see how well you go through it. Last letter in our word of transition is negotiable. Are things negotiable? It says open to discussion or modification. And sometimes we take on stuff and we will not move, we will not budge because we think the way in which we want to do it is correct. Sometimes we need to listen long enough to find out what someone has to say in order to know if it can be adopted by us, imported, sewn into the fabric of what it is that we're doing. Probably some of the best, information that I put out to people is when I've heard something that someone says, and I'll give them credit. It's like, I always tell you, my mother, I tell you, was a PhD without a degree. She was that good. She was just that good. But when we look at something being negotiable, it says that it's open. It's clear. No one's blocked. It says it's unblocked. It's passable, meaning that if we work together, it could be passable. It says it's versal, and it's negotiable. It's navigational. Sometimes we have trouble because someone else told it to us. I say take every carrot and make it shine. Every one of them. Just like if you got a diamond ring and the diamond ring was shining, every time the light hit it. That's good. That's good. So I give them credit and use what you can. Use what you can from the other folks. But look at it as this is part of the transition. That piece was missing. I thank you. I acknowledge you. And I have several people that I work with and talk to, and they'll always tell me if I'm on point. They also are cool enough to say, girl, add this. Think about this. And we'll talk about it. I said, that's it. That's it. That's what was missing. And I think we as adults sometimes act like children because we won't acknowledge others. And what's the point? Acknowledge them. Say that they helped you. Say that they were there to assist, and you learned something, and it was worth the addition that you now have to whatever it is that you're doing. But listen, I want you all to have a wonderful day. Look at life in a way that says, I plan to make a transition from being the same mundane from 2023 to the Mr. or the Ms. in 2024. I'm going to be top of my game. Whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm going to transition in such a way that I not only do I like it, I love it. And transition, just like a lot of things, it's ongoing, meaning that even you transition at the first 3 months, 6 months of 2024, you may have to do another transition before you get out of the end of 2024, the last 6 months. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. I look at the fact that you didn't have to come. You could be someplace else. So I am grateful. I am grateful for your friendship, for your kindness, for your care, And listen, we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful 2024 together. Just keep hanging in there. And if you don't do anything else, hit the share button and share this video so that people know that there's someone out here. I ask for no money. I don't even know how to take it off. Somebody told me how to put it on, but I don't know how to take it off. But just share the video and let people continue to find out who Dr. Winnie is. Okay? Have a wonderful day. Be safe out there. Look, the viruses, some of them are coming back up. I know a couple people now that are sick. Take care of yourself. Cover up when you can, especially in closed places. Okay? Love you guys. See you soon on Wednesday. No, actually, today's Friday. I'll be back on Monday. I'll see you on Monday. Yeah. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend. Love you. Thank you.